Hi everyone, welcome back to Rob Lewis Racing. We're doing some preparation now, ready for Oulton Park. We're back at the barn, at the Raw Motorsport barn in the middle of nowhere. Robin's got some cars out he's doing some work on at the moment at Raw Motorsport Towers. Check them out for your modification needs, your race needs, and for general servicing around the Salisbury and White Parish area. So the focus is back at the barn. We've got it pulled back. We've got a bit of space around it. I need to do some servicing around it. And the other thing you'll notice, I'm holding a different camera this time. I've not got the DJI out. I've got a GoPro Hero 12 that my lovely other half has bought as well to aid with racing. So we're going to be filming all the onboards with it. Hopefully it won't look like a potato like it did on the Silverstone vlog. And it did shake a bit, didn't it? So apologies for that. But we're going to do some bits on the car, do a bit of servicing because we've actually got Oulton Park in 2 weeks. God, the race season comes around quite quickly. So let's start getting into it. I'm going to talk through some bits on the car. Okay, so one of the jobs we've got going on today is concerned with the engine bay. We've got a new coolant temperature sensor to fit. We've got an inline bracket that we're just going to marry up, make sure it's all the right measurements, and then we're going to cut the hose, fit this bracket on so we can get some good coolant temperature sensor, because we were relying on the ECU cutbacks a bit. I didn't physically have a reading on the dash, so we're making sure that's different for Oulton Park as the temperatures get a bit warmer. The one thing with these Ecoboost engines is you've got to make sure that you are watching the temperatures constantly, because if it's too cold or too hot, that's when the liners crack. The other thing we're doing with this as well, on the day before Oulton Park, I was due to go back to TRS Performance to have the map tweaked on the Friday before Silverstone was originally the plan. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to see Peter and Ned down there in time. I had a bit of a chaotic day, so we had to change the plans on that, and I went straight to Silverstone instead. So I did that Silverstone weekend still on only 1.3 bar boost. So we've got to work out what's going on there. And we've got to work out whether it's a map issue, whether I need to make an adjustment on the turbo. For me, it's about learning about how all these things work. I have a rough theory in my head, you know, a lot of studying, and I've studied automotive. So you know how a turbo engine works, but it's all the nuances, all the little niggly bits that could stop it from optimizing the performance. 1.6 bar boost is how it should be in about 300 horsepower. At the moment, I'm running 1.3 and about 270. So went really well at Silverstone. It will go really well at Oulton Park, I hope. And, you know, we're up against some tough opposition in the modified Fords. But I'm absolutely loving this car, and I'm loving driving it. The long straights, hanger straight, hard on the brakes, down into the chicane, notoriously hard on the brakes. Oulton Park will be the same. And you know you can trust on EBC to give you a good service, good products. Graves Motorsport, these guys have been absolutely phenomenal with the tyres as well. The slicks and the wets that they've provided me have been nice and sticky. The wets were absolutely brilliant in the second race at Silverstone. It was my fault. I cocked up the pressures on it, ran them far too high. Driving Talk podcast as well. Don't forget to look us up on Spotify. We had a brilliant episode with Patrick Watts, and we're filming some more soon. There's the main man himself, Robin Welsh, Raw Motorsport, and my new logo down there. Looks good, doesn't it? Driven Minds as well. Don't forget, if you are feeling a bit low, if you want a bit of help, you're in the automotive and the motorsport industry, we're working on so many things behind the scenes at the moment to help people in the industry get the mental health help they need. Great initiatives coming up with charities like Ben and so on and so forth. So we've got some great stuff coming up. Now I've got to do some investigating because I've also discovered, dun dun dun, we've got a bit of a leak. It's a slow leak, but it's still a leak. So I need to find out where that's coming from before we go to Oulton Park. So, time to get busy. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show you is on the front brakes. You would have seen on maybe one of the last videos I did, I can't remember if I released it or not. We service the brakes and we put these little bad boys on. So these are EBC sort of temperature gauges to see how warm the brakes were getting. And as you can see, they didn't actually get very hot at all. I obviously didn't stamp my foot hard enough on the brakes. But they were brand new pads, they've still got plenty in them. The discs, I've had a look over. They look okay. So I'm going to give it a bit of a blowout, a bit of a clean up. Make sure everything is tickety-boo here. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And then we've got to start looking for that pesky leak. GoPro stop. Okay, so I found the issue, and it appears to be under this hose here. So this goes from the top of the radiator down to this area here, and it's under this hose. I can feel a bit of weepy around where the Jubilee clip is. Now, that could be down to me. That could be down to me doing the Jubilee up a bit too tight. It's pinched the hose once it's expanded, and the Jubilee's actually cut into the hose and produced a little hole. Because it's so close to that, what we can do is give it a snip, and quite simply cut it where it's got a hole in it, move the hose a bit closer. We've got to cut that hose in two anyway, because that's where we're fitting the spacer for the new sensor. So it might be a bit of a blessing in disguise. Right, so just getting everything set up now. I've got to drain it off. Hopefully I can catch as much of the coolant into the pot as possible. Fix that hose, see where we end up. So just draining the coolant out of that top hose. It's still dripping a bit. I've got a nice big drip drain there that's clean. And the coolant's nice and clean, so I can drop that back in. I can basically put that coolant back in later on because it's nearly new anyway, and I could just use a bit of cloth to filter out any bits of dirt that are in the tray. It was a very clean tray anyway. But I'm just getting this top hose off, and I have a feeling I'm going to find the issue that dropped a couple of spots on the floor. So let's get this off. GoPro, stop recording. Okay, as you can hear, just running it up now. I've got the hose back on. The one thing I have discovered that there is a housing on the side of there, almost like a thermostat housing. There's a little bit of weeping going on under there as well, and there's an O-ring. I've nipped up the two securing bolts that hold it to the engine. There was probably about a quarter of a turn in it on them. I'll look at that going into Oulton Park, and I'll order up a service kit to maybe change the seals on it. It could well be that with the heat cycles, as soon as it's contracted, it's just let a little bit of coolant out. That was there from 2 weeks. There's not a lot for me to get concerned with there at the moment. It's still holding pressure, so I'm just bleeding the system up now. Got the hose on there with the sensor in place, so that's all in place now. So I'll have some coolant temperature on the dash. Hopefully, I've just got to do the wiring part first, so I'll crack on with that. So I have just run a test, run it up. And unfortunately, that sensor is not talking to man or beast. I've still got -20 on the coolant temp when you plug it into the Bluetooth receiver at the other end. I'm just doing some checks now with the meter. Everything's reading as it should do so far, so I can only hope, well, I can only surmise that it's my third Duff sensor. I've had 3 sensors on that. None of them have worked. Or potentially I've got a Duff input to the coolant temperature side on the dash, but I ruled that out by, when I was checking, joining the two together, and then it went up to its maximum. So its default's cold at -20 and went up to its maximum at 160. So I have got the range there. I've got the ohms readings there coming from the Bluetooth reader, but for some reason, what I've got in place, I might have to run another wiring through the bulkhead. I may have to run something else through. I don't know. So I just need to assess, see what's going on. I want to check that sensor as well. So more stuff to do. However, what I have done so far, I've had all 4 corners off, and I have given them the wiggle chest, checked every single nut and bolt that's there to make sure everything's tickety-boo. I've got a little bit of play on the bushes on both of the rears, and it's the bushes for the rear camber arms. So if I get in behind here, you probably can't see, but this is the main subframe here. At the front, there's these camber arms you could probably see. I could just get my fingers to up there. So they're basically to do the rear camber, and it's set at 1.5, I think, at the moment. The problem is there's a little bit of movement where the pin goes through, and it's a little bit of movement in the bush. So it's nothing bad, but it's something I need to keep an eye on and potentially change before Castle Combe. Oulton Park's quite a bumpy track, so I think Oulton Park is basically going to exacerbate the issues that I'll have there. So we'll see. Other issues, not really found any other issues. I've run it up, just making sure that bits don't come loose. I had a bit of an issue with one of the wheel studs on there, just get a little bit tight. I've cleaned them all off, run the nut through it. But no, apart from that sodding coolant temp issue, hopefully we don't get any more leakies either. I think she's pretty much good for Oulton Park. What do you think, folks? Any questions as well? Get in the comments below. One thing I am going to do, I've put the rear anti-roll bar back on this as well from the wet setup, so I've gone to a default dry setup. I'm going to go back through, change all the dry settings back to dry dampers, and fingers crossed Oulton is dry, because I'd like to race it in the dry. And just basically make sure that everything is tickety-boo in the engine bay, nut and bolt check, ready for Oulton. So I think that's going to conclude. Bit of a short video today. Really, it's just me trying out the new camera. So if you are watching, you enjoy it, get in the comments below. I am going to release the raw footage of all the races week by week as well before we go to Oulton. So yeah, have some fun. Thanks for watching. Anything you want to know, get in the comments, let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that jazz. See you very soon.